coming. I could seat you by the fire. Listen, listen. There's something I must confide. I know I said that it'd be fine. I know I made it look like it'd be alright.
Hi, this is Myra, and welcome to College Alternative.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to the College Alternative Podcast. Today, really excited because who are we going to be interviewing?
We're going to be interviewing, I forgot.
That's fine. Jonah Barnes. We're going to be interviewing Jonah Barnes. And what does he do for a job?
He is a master.
Electrician, right? So he's a master electrician. So he runs his own shop. He runs his own business out of Southern Arizona. Been in the business for a really, really long time. And it's really, really awesome because he's going to be talking about how you too can become an electrician, how to get into the job, what are the requirements, and then how to succeed in the job. How can you start to run your own business, right? So if you get into the job now, become an electrician now, what are you going to be within the next 3 to 5 years? Maybe you can run your own shop. What's the possible salary for that? Tradesmen are retiring these days. They need more. And so this is a job, this is a trade in demand. Definitely something for you guys to check out and consider for a career. So thanks for tuning in, guys.
Interviews with the best in their fields, teaching you how to excel in careers that don't require traditional college. You're listening to the College Alternative Podcast. Insider tips and advice, straight from the experts. And now, here is your host, James Christian.
Hello and welcome to the College Alternative Podcast. Really, really excited. I've got Jonah Barnes on the line here from Barataria Electric. And you guys operate out of Cochise County, Arizona area. And you're going to be talking about what it's like to be an electrician today.
Yeah. Well, everybody wants to be an electrician, I'm sure. So that's why we want to talk about it.
Absolutely.
But
So,
yes.
Yeah, why don't you introduce yourself here and your background and just how you got into it?
Again, like you said, I'm Jonah Barnes. I'm the owner of Barataria Electric. I've owned Barataria Electric now for, I've had to rename the company due to other contracts and things like that, but Barataria Electric has actually been in business for about 3.5, 4 years now. But I've been an electrician for over 20 years in Sierra Vista, Arizona, and then other contracts elsewhere around Cochise County as well. I got 3 part-time guys I've got working for me. It just depends on the work. If we got a bunch of work, coming up or something like that, then I'll pick them up and we'll end up being full-time. But right now, it's just small business, trying to see what we can do in Sierra Vista, and try to make good with the economy or whatever, or try to at least come up with some work.
Yeah, nice. So what influenced you to become an electrician versus, any other life path, career path?
Well, electricians always have it sort of made in the shade, literally, because usually when there's a house being built or anything like that, the roof's already on, the framing's already up, and we're already inside there, so we don't have to be out there in the sun. So that would be that would be my that'd be my number one influence, because I've worked in some of the other construction trades, and I thought, man, doing roofing in Arizona is just not where it's at, and obviously doing concrete work in Arizona is not either. You got to get up at dark 30 in the morning to get out there and get the concrete before it gets too hot. But I've always enjoyed electrical. I mean, I just really, really enjoy electrical. I mean, anything about it, either AC voltage or DC direct current. And I like the problems associated with it. I really do. I just really enjoy that part of it, I guess, and that's what really influenced me to be an electrician. I thought, I enjoy this stuff and I'm good at it, so I might as well, try to make a business out of it.
Yeah, so you're talking problems. What kind of problems? What kind of solutions do you try to have to solve something like this?
There's several contractors in Cochise County, electrical contractors, but a lot of the contractors in Cochise County don't like to do service calls. I formerly worked for a contractor that didn't really like to do the service calls because they were mainly focused on the new construction because they felt that there was more money to be made that way rather than the service calls that, they would go out there and sometimes it would take hours on end to fix. But if you have a good service technician, and I felt that I was, and then it wasn't that big of a deal. And service calls, I mean, it can range from anything from, hey, my light's out in my living room, or hey, I got, 3 or 4 outlets out against this back wall over here. Can you come over and try to figure it out? Or, I mean, it's things like that, or it could be anything, or acts of nature, even because like we have, during monsoon season, we'll have either a microburst or something like that, and we'll pull power lines down, and then, ultimately I'll pull the service down or something like that in someone's house. So it varies.
Yeah. Okay. So what you're saying is there's 2 different sort of types of electricians out there. There's ones that do the, I guess, new construction on the new houses. They're
Correct.
doing that sort of stuff. And then there are guys that are going into existing homes and trying to fix it. And so you're saying that service, it might be a little bit not difficult, but it's just a different world, I guess you could say.
Well, it is a different world. I mean, we have the economy is different here in Sierra Vista. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure how many years you've been here, James, but I've been here since '92, and then I actually went to work for an electrical contractor in '96, and that was right on the edge of the big housing boom that really took off in 2099, and that's when we had the mall here built, and a lot of construction took place at that time, and it didn't look like at that time that would ever end. I mean, it just looked like, man, this town's going to grow and be the size of Tucson overnight. But
Yeah.
That really changed, and when that changed, that put a lot of electrical contractors out of business because a lot of electrical contractors, like I say, focus on new construction, and they didn't do the service calls. But now, the economy we're in right now, there's not as much new construction, but people are maintaining those homes. So that's where Barataria Electric comes into play. Is that, hey, they're tired of having fluorescent lights in the kitchen when they can now have recessed cans. So that's the kind of stuff that we'll pick up and we'll do, and we really like doing that kind of work, and there's a lot of it out there.
Oh, nice. So I get it. So as the economy, as the market has shifted focus, right, you've been able to really step up.
Correct.
and be able to adapt yourself to be able to service as
Exactly.
the market has matured and progressed. Nice, cool. So did you ever consider going to college, or did you go to college, or why did you go into trades versus that?
When I was in high school, they offered a program that allowed you to take college courses while you were in high school here in Sierra Vista and over at Cochise College. And I did take a few of those classes just to get a taste of what college was like and whether I really wanted to pursue that. I was trying to tailor myself to be, into the construction and understand things. So I took drafting classes, and I took drafting. I actually took mechanical drafting. I mean, back in the mid '90s, we didn't have the computers like we have now. So I actually took mechanical pen and paper drafting, paper and pencil, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And then when I started going into Cochise College there and taking those classes, we got into AutoCAD, which is the big drafting program that everybody uses now. And that was a brand new program at that time. And I thought, well, this is really neat to know, and everything like that. But it allowed me to be able to read blueprints and, be able to further what I was going to do down the road, let alone did I know I was going to own a business. I didn't know that, but I knew I was going to be related to something with construction. And I thought, well, if it's pretty valuable if you're going to work in construction, if you know how to read blueprints.
Yeah. Well, here's the other thing too, is you went a different route than I'm assuming the majority of your peers, right?
I did. Yes, I
so,
did.
I mean, what influenced you to do that? I mean, why would you essentially go upstream?
Well, a lot of my peers and everything like that, since we're a military town, a lot of my peers joined the military. That was the number one thing right out of high school. It was like, hey, join the military, get out of Sierra Vista. Boy, I'm tired of being here. Yeah. And then, a number of them did go to college. They did go to college, but they went for different reasons. It wasn't like they were going to, they were going out there to make a fortune or do gaming or whatever they wanted to do at that time. But, Yeah, and then only a handful of us. I mean, I only know one other guy that I'm really familiar with from school that really went into construction. And,
Yeah, I
you know,
get
we,
totally. I mean, you
yeah,
guys, you totally went upstream on that. I mean, you totally went a different path. That's very, very unique.
we did go a different path. Well, but there's always going to be a job in construction trades. You know, there's
Exactly.
always going to be a need for electrician. There's always going to be a need for a plumber. I mean, as long as we're going to have houses, we're going to have those needs. I mean, it's always going to be that way. So it's guaranteed work right out of the, right off the bat. And I mean, and a lot of the trades you don't have to have. I mean, you've asked in here, you don't have to have a lot of experience to get started into those either. You just got to have the want. You know, if you're like, hey, I'm interested in this and I want to learn this. I want to learn electrical, or say I want to learn plumbing, or I want to learn roofing or something, or learn drywall. There's and some of the people were influenced by their families, obviously, like that too. I know the other guy I work with, his family is really into drywall and stuff like that, so he was sort of influenced internally that way. But yeah,
You're doing this, okay?
I didn't have any. Yeah, I didn't have any influence from my family because my father lives in Indiana, and my mother basically just told me I could do whatever I wanted to do, whether it be go to college or work here in town or whatever. And I thought, you know what? I think I can make a good living just doing construction here in Sierra Vista, and doing electrical.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying is big. I mean, when you see, especially in this economy, everyone goes to college, and therefore that market is saturated, right? I mean,
Exactly.
college
Yeah,
degrees are a
exactly.
dime a dozen. I think you hit the nail right on the head, right? You said,
Well, anymore, a college degree, I mean, it's almost, your associate's degree is almost like you're having your high school diploma, and at least it's what I've seen. I mean, if you get up there and you have your master's or something like that, then yeah, you can pretty much walk in and get a job in the technical fields and everything like that. But then you'll be overqualified for anything in the construction fields because they're going to be like, oh, wow, this guy's got a master's degree in electrical engineering, and he wants to come over here and wire houses. Yeah, well, he's going to want like $30 an hour or more.
yeah, exactly. So what was your pathway to becoming an electrician? I know. Okay, so you took a little bit of some college courses, some drafting courses out of high
Correct.
school, but then how did you get your training? How did you achieve your training?
You know what? I sort of did the training. I learned it myself. I didn't take any classes on it. Yeah, I really didn't. I mean, I know it sounds weird. A lot of people probably would, but I learned from doing it on the job, which is, you go out there and get your hands dirty. I had the want, and I had the knowledge behind how electricity worked when I went to work for the first electrical contractor. I had that knowledge, and when I went there, that electrical contractor, I was able to work with several different people before I actually took over the service department and started doing the service actually about 4 months after I started there.
Wait.
Anyway,
You
those
took
guys,
you took over the department within 4 months?
Within 4 months, I did. Yeah, it was just a stroke of luck and a combination of guys thinking that Sierra Vista wasn't going to grow at that time period, but at the same time, I had the knowledge behind troubleshooting things. And it just so happened that the guy that was there decided he wanted to retire, and he didn't think Sierra Vista was going to grow anymore, so he decided to retire out of Sierra Vista Electric and left. And then I told the owner, I was like, hey, I can step in there and do that. And he was able to give me the chance to do that, even though it was a hard road. But and I made mistakes along the way and stuff like that. But at least I understood the electrical background to be able to sort of goof my way through it a little bit in the beginning there. But I got better. I mean,
so you didn't go through like a formal apprenticeship either, then? Is that what you're saying?
I did not. I didn't go through any kind of apprenticeship or anything like that. I learned on the job. So I mean, it was probably like how most kids or anything would go out of school. They're not going to have the money to go through apprenticeship, let alone know where to start with anything like that. They're just going to walk into a contractor and say, you know what, I need a job, and they're going to be like, well, what do you know? And you're like, well, I know a little bit about electrical, and they're like, okay, we'll hire you, but we're not going to pay you very well until you learn this. And that's what, the contractor I worked for banked on hiring people at a lower price to train them to wire the places how they wanted them wired. And it worked. I mean, I didn't agree with it at the time. At the time I didn't agree with it. I thought, man, why are they hiring some of these guys? They don't know anything. but somebody's got to give them a chance. And they would hire those guys, and within, I don't know, 6 months, a year, they'd be wiring the houses themselves. But they didn't understand the theories behind the electrical. They just knew that if they wired it that way, that it was supposed to work. And well, that works sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't. And that's where I sort of stepped in, where these guys would come out there and they were like, well, we wired it this way at this other house, so why shouldn't it work here? And it's like, well, because this is not how electricity works. And so they would learn at the same time too, but
Oh, okay.
it was
So
definitely,
So
yeah.
you learn the underlying concepts versus just
I
the
did.
techniques. Yeah.
Exactly. And then once I worked for the electrical contractor, I learned the techniques and, per se, the codes at the time and everything like that. What the electrical codes were. Obviously what height the boxes are supposed to be, and what gauge wire was supposed to go where. Because I knew that stuff, but I didn't know what was proper until I went to work there. And I think, oh, now I understand. Okay, why we have a 20 amp circuit in the kitchen. Okay, yeah, now that makes sense. And why we have 15 amp in the bedrooms and a 30 amp for a dryer and whatever else.
Yeah, that's totally. I don't do electricity. I'll do the plumbing. I'll do everything else. But yeah, it's electricity. I want a professional there. So what you're saying?
Well, and I appreciate that. And that's what keeps me in business, because a lot of people are scared of electrical. So that's, you were asking in here too, is if you have that want and you have the want to go into basically doing electrical, then you'll do good at it, I think. But if you go in there scared and you're not sure what you're doing and everything, you'd probably be better to look towards something else, because, there are times people ask me all the time. At least once a week, if not twice a week, how many times have you been shocked? And I'm like, well, never, never, ever. No. I'm a professional electrician. I've never been shocked.
No.
Well, I'd be lying. I get shocked. Just the same as anybody else. But the main thing is you got to respect the electrical. You just got to understand it and respect it. And then don't put yourself in situations where you're going to get shocked. I don't know if you've ever had anybody come over and meet. In particular, I'd come over there and be like, oh, the light switch is broken off, the chair hit it or something like that. Well, I'm not going to go all the way out to the panel and turn the thing off. I'm going to pull the thing out of the wall and change it right there while it's live. And there's always that potential to get shocked or something like that. But I've done it so many times that I feel confident enough that I can do it without getting shocked. So
yeah, exactly. Well, and then also it's all about level of risk versus experience. For me, I just don't have the experience or the knowledge. You do. And so when I see you do an action, I'm going to be approaching that from a viewpoint of no experience and no training, and you're going to be approaching it from such a high level. You're on a totally different level than me. So yeah, that's it is what it is. So you were mentioning before you got hired on. You didn't have you never did the apprenticeship. You never really did any formal training or certification on this. Is this kind of the recommended route for someone who's starting out today? Would this be something you'd recommend?
I can tell you probably not in Sierra Vista. Sierra Vista at the time, whenever I went into the trade, like I said, we were right on that forefront of the housing boom really taking off. And it was almost, the Holiday Inn Express commercial or Holiday Inn commercial? Well, I stayed at Holiday Inn last night. You should be qualified to be an electrician,
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it was at that time period. If you walked in the door and you were breathing and you could, use both hands, you were an electrician. And that's the way it was. They didn't care what background you had or anything. They just wanted warm bodies to show up to work.
Yeah.
But now with the economy sort of flip-flopped, they're only keeping good electricians. They're not keeping the guys that want to come in there and companies don't want to pay for people to learn on their expense. So it would probably be recommended, if you're going to pursue the electrical field, to at least go and maybe try to take some sort of courses somewhere, either it be, like you say, a journeyman or apprenticeship class or something like that, just to get some background on it. So at least you can talk the talk, basically, when you walk in there and say, hey, look, I know what a 30 amp breaker is, and I know that it requires 10 gauge wire. And, I feel that I could come work for you and make some money. And then they're going to decide for themselves, well, okay, well, at least the guy knows what a 30 amp breaker is, and he knows what 10 gauge wire is. And well, we'll give them a chance, But,
Yeah. Okay. So that totally that makes sense to me here. So okay.
mhm.
So at least take a couple classes. And heck, if you like it, then I'm sure a lot of these trade schools, there are more and more classes you can take until you get your licensure or whatever certification. Well, we're going to be talking about that a little bit later, but at least have
Right.
some of that
And
background in theory.
if you at least have the background, and at least you could walk in there and you could, because I just don't think the economy will be as receptive to people coming in there, or at least businesses will be as receptive people coming in and saying, look, I don't know anything about electrical. I worked in cleaning porta potties before. Can I come work for you as an electrician? And the companies are going to be like, no.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So what's going to open up the doors for guys? Yeah, it
exactly.
it's different during the housing boom.
Yeah, it was different. It was a different world, different economy, and everything like that. Then I think Sierra Vista will go through it again, and that's why I'm sort of staying here. I'm going to call this home here in Sierra Vista, and we'll see what happens. We're really dependent upon what Fort Huachuca does, and we got a great climate down here. There's more and more people coming down here, so it's got a mix of both. So I think there'll be work in years to come down here, at least here, anyways.
Nice.
And anywhere for electrical, anyways, for that matter.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. All need energy.
Yep, exactly.
So you mentioned just, taking the, the light switch panel off the wall and messing with it and fixing it while it's live. And that's kind of a misconception versus reality versus, just different levels of perception there. But what are some other big misconceptions about electricians that somebody might have?
I always tell everybody I'm an electrician, not a magician, because a lot of people think you can just make power appear wherever they want it. And it's like, hey, look, I can't wave my magic wand and make power appear over here for this, let alone you don't have room in your panel to add in your 50 amp jacuzzi and your 30 amp sauna and everything else like that on your 100 amp service here. So that's just not going to fly. So the misconception is that that we can go in and do things. It doesn't matter if it's safe or not. We're just going to go in there and do it. And it's like, no, we got to do this to code, and it needs to be proper, because electrical and most people understand too that it's a potential. If you do it wrong, it's going to cause a fire. So, that's the misconceptions of things like that, is just that we can do anything electrical. And it's like, there's different types of electricians. So it just depends on what kind of training you have or what kind of background you have in electrical to be able to do whatever it is that, the customer wants, I guess.
Yeah. and then what makes in your view, what makes a good electrician? I mean, what skills do you have to learn right off the bat? All that sort of stuff. What's a good one for you?
I think the number one thing is you got to enjoy what you do. I mean, I really, really do. I mean, if you don't enjoy it, then you're not going to be a good electrician. You're just not going to be. You're just going to come to work every day and you're just like, oh man, another day. Oh man, I have to do this or that and the other. No, I enjoy it every day when I wake up and I think, oh, I got these service calls lined up. Boy, this will be unique to find out what's causing, the neighbor's house is, they're turning on the light switch in the neighbor's house and it's turning on the bathroom lights in their house. It's like, wonder what's causing that. But if you enjoy those kind of things and those kind of problems, then it's like, oh, okay, it'll be good for you. If you don't enjoy it, then you just won't do well. And I don't think, anyways, it'll just be a job. You'll just go to work, do your thing, wire the house like some of those guys did, nail arm boxes, run wire, staple it down, and then go home. Mm-hmm. And then that's all they do. And a skill you can learn, basically, you can learn it on the job. I did. I'm an example of that. I learned it. I understood it before I went there, but I did learn the proper things. As I went along there, I knew the proper means, how far you're supposed to staple the wires from the box, and what height the boxes are supposed to mount, obviously, and things like that. And then, you just got to have a good interest in it, I think, and enjoy what you do.
Yeah. Well, you're right. In anything that you're going to do, it's either choosing to be miserable in a job or choosing to really take it on and really delve into the depths there. And that, like you were just saying, I mean, learning the theory behind it as far as electricity versus just understanding the motions. Yeah. Yeah. And that's
Exactly.
probably honestly the reason why you've been successful in your business too. It's the guys that want to stay in the job and learn the concepts behind everything. They're gonna definitely
Exactly.
be accelerating their career versus the guys that just sort of, I don't really want to be here. Yeah, I totally get
Yeah, that's it. I'm just here for the paycheck.
it. But I mean, that definitely benefits you further down the road, right? I mean, it
I
really
agree.
does.
Yeah, exactly.
So, are there any type of licenses you need to get as an electrician?
Well, in the state of Arizona, I'm not sure in other states. The state of Arizona is pretty lax on licensing and things like that.
Okay.
They do require a contractor's license if you're going to do over $1,000 in at least contracting work. It doesn't specify whether it's electrical, plumbing, HVAC, or roofing, or concrete work, or framing, or anything like that. But if you're going to be an electrician and you're going to be a good electrician, your jobs are definitely you're going to be $1,000 and over, on several of your jobs, and depending on what they are. I mean, even wiring a shed into somebody's backyard can easily be $1,000. So
Yeah.
it's wise to
Yeah.
go through the motions and get your contractor's license if you're going to do that, and then also if you're going to pursue commercial work, commercial electrical work, which is a whole different thing, and it's a whole different world in itself compared to residential. Any commercial work requires a license in the state of Arizona. You do also require bonding. Bonding will help you, if you have any problems down the road with any problems per se, and then also your insurance. So you need to have your insurance if you're going to do these kind of things, especially if you're going to work in people's homes, because you just never know when you're going to have problems and stuff like that. You're like, and me in particular, I've got, like I said, 3 part-time guys, but I felt that I wanted to have good guys working for me that I could trust to be out there on the job. And there's always that chance they could make a mistake as well, and that's why we carry the insurance and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
You can't always be everywhere at once and oversee everything, but accidents do happen, but you definitely don't want them to happen in electrical.
Yeah, and so when we're talking about licenses, does each individual guy have to have a license, or are you covered under the license of the business?
You're covered under the license of the business, and then
Oh,
what
okay.
the state requires is what they call a qualifying party. I'm the qualifying party for Barataria Electric. I'm listed as qualifying party. I'm the one responsible for basically my other 3 guys. I'm responsible for checking their work and saying, yes, it's done to code, and yes, it will pass an inspection.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what the state requires as a contractor's license. But
Okay.
no, it's not required that each person have one. It's not required that they all hold a apprentice card or a journeyman's card. It helps. It depends on if you're going to work. If you're going to work in the union is not very strong out here. I mean, not like in the Midwest or up in the Michigan or Wisconsin and those areas like that. The union out here does recognize a lot of that stuff. They'll look and they'll say, oh, well, this guy's got his journeyman's card, or this guy's got his apprenticeship card, or hey, this guy's a master electrician. They will recognize those things and pay accordingly. Out here, not so much. There are union jobs out here. Union work is sporadic. One of my good friends, he's about ready to retire. We worked together, 20 some odd years ago, and he decided to choose the path of the union instead of working for an electrical contractor, and I chose the path to continue to where I'm at now. And through the years, we've kept in touch, and I don't believe he has worked an entire year in those 20 years that we've been in touch. I mean, it's only as the union gets the work, it's like, hey, there's a big enough job. They're wiring a Fry's or something like that up in Phoenix, and the union got the job, or the union electrical contractor, and they'll work on that for 6 months, and then they'll be laid off 6 months. So, So anyway, go back to your thing. That's you don't require any of that stuff. It just depends on the path you choose to take. If you choose to work for an electrical contractor and continue to work for that contractor for 20 or 30 years, and no, you don't require any of that stuff. But if you decide to be like me and, hey, you want to improve your business and you want to start your business, then yeah, it's wise. You need to go get your license, and you'll have to take some testing on it. It's pretty straightforward. The state requires you take testing mainly on your license, but then they also test you on the laws of the state on how to put liens on things. And, if you are going to do a big enough job, then obviously you need to put a lien on a job, or, the best practices and how to pursue getting paid from some of these jobs. Because, the bigger jobs, say you were doing a fry, say Barretary Electric was wiring a fries, I mean, that could easily be, $150,000, $200,000 electrical job in itself.
Yeah.
Depending on what it is. But how do you guarantee you're going to get paid from those kind of things? Well, you need to put liens on there like everybody else, all the other contractors. And then as the jobs progress and get done and get finalized and everything, then you'll receive payments from those companies. And sometimes the prime contractor, misbid it, or maybe they lost it on the other job down the street there, and they're filing bankruptcy. But you need to know how to pursue them to be able to get your money, or hey, you're going to be out of business too.
Oh yeah, you got to get paid.
Yep, everybody's got to get paid.
Oh yeah, and so this is really awesome though too. I'm really glad I'm interviewing you, because it's great to get a different perspective. Because some of the people in other trades that I've interviewed here have been out on the East Coast or in the Midwest, where, like you said, the union is a lot stronger. So they're approaching their training and licensing from the union side of the house. Where the union provides training for them and certification. And so this is really awesome to be able to talk to you from the perspective of unions, either A, not big out here, or they're just not providing the services that they are in other locations. So this is, this is really, really nice. So how are you requiring ongoing training, kind of like continuing education? And who provides that if the union's not around?
Well, if you're your own, like in my case, I'm self-employed, Barretary Electric, I work for my company, then you got to pursue training however you can get it. Sometimes there'll be courses that the city will put on. They just put a course on about a year ago, where they invited a lot of electrical contractors down because they were trying to give the rundown on LED lighting and where it can be used, and how it applies to our town, because we have all these restrictions on lighting levels and everything, because we're a dark skies county, meaning that we can't have light shining up in the air, and we can't have light pollution is what they call it. But there's courses like that you could take. Cochise College used to offer like little one-night classes. I don't think they do that anymore, just because there's just not a lot of people wanting those kind of things around here. I'm not saying that Tucson or Phoenix doesn't offer those things, but if you can take any kind of training, go for it. I mean, if anybody's offering it, especially if it's free, and sometimes you'll get pizza and Cokes out of it or something like that too.
Even better.
A bonus dip, even better. So, and sometimes they'll give you free stuff. The last one I went to, they gave free hats and free pens and like a gift card to some other place just for showing up. And I'm just like, hey, well, I'm here to learn all I can and receive my free stuff. But if you can take any kind of training, I highly recommend it. So it's just, you never stop learning, in my opinion. You never, ever stop learning. If it just makes you that much better of a person in everything you do, if you can pursue any kind of training.
100%. And the other thing here too is, from an outsider's perspective, and this, is just my perspective here, but it seems like your world is so dynamic and changing, especially now, because you've got, smart grid tech that's coming online from the power grid, and you've got more and more appliances that are becoming smarter, with feedback to the parent company. Right. I mean, all these different things that are being integrated that are dealing with the electric side of the house. Yeah, your world is definitely developing. So, I mean, how are you keeping up with that if you're not getting online?
It's a lot of it. I find that I learn a lot of that stuff on the job, because some of these people will come to me and be like, hey, we're wanting to make our house automated. We want to be able to control our lighting and everything from our smartphone. How can we do this? And I'd be like, oh, well, to be honest with you, I'm not sure, but hey, I will find out. And then either I'll contact the manufacturer, or I'll do some research and I hate to say it, but boy, Google is a good teacher too. I mean, you can Google a lot of that stuff, and there's a lot of forums out there and stuff like that people can have been in those same positions that you're in right now. And you're just like, hey, these people want to control their lighting from the smartphone. What's the best system that you would recommend, or what is people saying? And then you read through those, and you're like, oh, okay, well, Levington's the best system for a smartphone system, and this is what we need to do. But you can learn a lot of stuff from online stuff like that too. I mean, it seems like anymore everybody's got the internet, whether the connection's good or not. Like my connection, since I live way out in the sticks out here, my connection's horrible, but if everybody has internet anymore. It's very rare that you see anybody with a flip phone or anything like that. And, most people have a smartphone, and I've had to upgrade too. I've got a smartphone, and, a lot of times I'll be out troubleshooting something like that. I'll be like, hey, these people have this smart water heater that only kicks on and only heats, at certain times of the day. So then you're like, well, do you have the owner's manual for it? And they'll be like, oh, no, I don't have that anymore. So then you get on your smartphone.
That's the first thing.
Of course not. Yeah, it's the first thing. Yeah, we started the fire with it last night, But anyway, you can get on your smartphone and you can download the manual. I mean, I just had an experience recently. I contract on Fort Huachuca. I do a lot of work up there. And then plus I do my own business here in the real world too, and I guess down here in Sierra Vista. But we had an HVAC unit up there that was installed by a third-party company. They came in and installed it. And they're like, well, here you go. Here's the HVAC unit. There you go. It's all yours. And we're like, okay, well, where's the books on it? How do we use this thing? Well, we don't know. We just installed it. So then we called the manufacturer, and the manufacturer's like, well, usually whoever installs it knows how to use them. We don't provide that kind of training or anything like that. So you're going to have to figure it out for yourself, basically. But if you have any questions, call us back. And I'm
really?
Like,
so the manufacturer
I got okay.
Training?
Yeah, exactly. Aren't you guys going to provide any kind of training on this thing? Or no? You guys didn't pay for that. That wasn't part of the government contract. We just provided the unit, and they provided the HVAC company out of Phoenix to come down and install it, and now it's yours. So the problem I was having, of all the silly things to have with the unit, I didn't know how to turn it off. So that was, how do you turn this thing off? It's got a little keypad on it there, and you're just like, what in the world? How in the world? So go, good old Google. You go into Google and Google that unit, and then I was able to finally get into some of the manufacturer's books, and then download the actual manual for it. And then I was finally figured out. I was like, oh, well, yeah, you got to hold the program key and the alarm key and do the hokey pokey, and then hey, it turns off. But I would never have known that if I had gone in through there.
But that's a cool thing about that's a cool thing about your job, and tying that in with learning is you're constantly having to learn. Right. I mean, exactly. if you love your job and you're going to want to learn and constantly improve yourself, and that's a really neat thing about the electrician side of the house is people are adapting smart technology more and more. They're turning their homes into smart homes, you know. And then I'm sure out here in Arizona, more and more people want to, tie into the electrical grid with their own power. Right, through either solar panels. Solar's
a big thing. Solar was a big thing until the power company decided that, hey, we're not making enough money on these people, having solar systems and backfeeding our power lines. But solar was a big thing. I mean, people were coming out there and they didn't know, people knew they wanted it. They just didn't know what the cost was behind it and stuff like that. But that was a big thing then. It's not as big now. It still is, but like I said, the power company's not offering as many rebates, and then the technology is ever changing on that stuff too. I don't get it personally. I don't get into solar stuff because I just can't keep up with it. I mean, it seems like one week install this $40,000 system, then next week it's $20,000 and it's better.
Yeah.
But then you're trying to explain that to the homeowner. You're like, well, I know the other system's better, but yours functions and yours works, and it was a good system a week ago. Still good. It still does.
So is the business, having established electric business out here, is it harder to have one in an urban area like Chicago versus a rural area, versus taking into account competition versus supply and everything like that? I mean, if somebody was looking to become an electrician, which is a better area to get into location wise?
I think they both have their pros and cons, but I think if you're going to start in a small or a rural area, then you need to have very good customer service, because everybody talks to everybody and you don't know, who's related to who or anything else like that. You'd be over at their house and you're putting up a light fixture or something like that. I was over at a house, a month ago down in Douglas, of all places, and down there putting in a ceiling fan. And I'm talking to the people and just making conversation with them and this and that here. Well, come to find out they're cousins to my wife's family. And I'm just like, I never knew them from Adam, until they called me for a service call. And I'm just like, oh, I didn't know you were related. You're related to them? They're like, oh, yeah, we're related to them. I was like, well, that's my wife. And they're like, oh, well, yeah, we haven't talked to her in like 30 years. I was like, oh, well, let me call her. But, in a rural area, like I said, everybody knows everybody. For the most part, if you've got a bad reputation, then everybody's going to know it. Everybody's going to know the one bad thing you did rather than the 100 good things you did for the other people. But everybody's going to hear that bad thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then
is there
I would think in an urban, well, in the small area, I think there's more competition, to be honest with you. Because,
really? Okay.
Yeah, I really do. I think so, because I've missed out on bids in this town by, $50 or $60. And you're just like, man, for $50, it seems like they would have gone with me, but they're like, hey, well, $50 is $50, as good to me as good to you. And I'm just like, well, you're right. I wish you would have called me first and said, hey, look, this guy's doing it for $50 cheaper. And they're like, well, that's the whole reason we put it out to bid. We just want to see what your best price was, But in an urban area, I think you sort of blend in with the work. I think you have your own niche of customers and stuff like that in an urban area. I think that's my opinion now. I'm not saying that it is factual, but I think you would have your own niche of customers that you would probably continually do. And then you would continually do either businesses or, certain people. And then that would probably keep you busy. I don't think you'll always pick up new customers from word of mouth referrals in an urban area or something like that. But I think you've got your own set of customers out here. I get calls from different people every day, and it just depends. Sometimes they'll be like, hey, you were over at my neighbor's house the other day and you were putting in a fan and I saw your truck over there. And you know what? I thought about it. I need 2 more fans put in over here, So, but you're just like, where did you, hear from me, or how'd you get a hold of me, or how'd you find me? So, yeah. But in an urban area, I think they just call whoever's in the phone book.
Well, and that's. I guess we can talk about a little bit about that, just the basic business of being an electrician here. So how do you even market yourself? So you're talking, and it's nice because for you guys, everyone talks to everyone else. Hey, who is a good electrician? Is that how you get most of your referrals?
I would say that's how I get all of my referrals.
All
just
of them,
from word of mouth. Yeah, I do some advertising. I don't do a lot, just because I'm not a huge company, and I'd rather stay small. I hear ads from other electrical contractors, and I go eat at restaurants here in town, and I see their ads on placemats and stuff like that, on the tables and stuff like that. And I see those things, and I think, man, maybe I should jump in to do things like that. But I oftentimes wonder, I thought, well, I stay busy like I am right now. I stay pretty darn busy. How much more work would that give me? I wonder if I spent, that kind of money to be able to advertise that way. Mm-hmm. And I get calls all the time from, was it Yellow Pages? The Yellow Pages ad out of Tucson. They're always trying to get me to put an ad in the phone book. And I'm just like, well, who really uses the phone book anymore? I think internet is where the advertising works best. I think if you go in there and I guess I'm getting paid from Google today. I wish I was, but if you go in there and go to Google or whatever your favorite search engine is, and most people are going to be like, hey, I need an electrician. And if you can figure out how to get yourself your name and your company name at the top of that search engine, they're going to go with you. Mm-hmm. So, and that's what I found, I just think the internet is the best advertising right now because, like I said, people have smartphones. So, people don't want to take the time to thumb through a phone book or something like that. They're like, like Grandpa used that. It's like a dial-up phone or something like that,
Yeah.
But
so have you really transitioned yourself towards that? Like on
I've been
scheduling
trying, or
work in the Google
Mm.
SEO side of the house or anything like that? Have
I
you really
still think,
concentrated on that?
well, I still think in our town, anyways, we have a lot of older people, and I think
Okay,
they just
yeah.
click on. I think they just click on it to get the phone number, and that's what I'm banking on right now in my business, is that they're going to click on it, maybe go to my website, and as long as my phone number's on that first page, they're just going to call it. They're not going to really read through a lot of that stuff that's on there. They're just going to go through it. But then you get the other flip of the spectrum, the younger generation than me, that I went out to a call the other day. They actually read my whole profile on my website, and then I also not necessarily advertise, but I have I don't know what to call it. It's almost like an Angie's List, but they call it Thumbtack. And Thumbtack is a list of professionals in your area or whatever, and it'll send me, people put in requests, hey, I want to put in a ceiling fan, and then it'll send it to me, and Thumbtack will say, hey, so-and-so or in Canyon Drive over here wants a ceiling fan. Do you want to give them a price or give them a call? What do you want to do? And then I pay for those services to be able to, get those calls. And I get a handful of those calls. I don't get a lot of them, but I think a lot of the younger generation do, read those things. And like I said, I went to these people's house and they're like, hey, we really enjoyed reading your Thumbtack profile. That was a riot. And I'm just like, well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. You're the first person that's really told me that they read through the whole thing. But
well, I think
most people just Google it and look for the phone number.
Yeah, no,
Oh, yeah.
I definitely will research, and I will look through the profile. I want to see a picture. I want to see that bio. I want to see, and it just, it makes it feel more of a connection, I guess you could say, right? And so,
exactly.
It's quite interesting. I mean, I guess you just have to sort of play towards whatever market you have. And so you're right. I guess Sierra Vista has a lot of retirees here that maybe it won't do that, but this next generation that's coming up certainly will. So it's just interesting how you've had to play towards both, or you're transitioning towards the other one while still having the other one.
If you're going to be in a good business or have a good business, you got to play both fields. You got to get the work wherever you can get it, because that's the whole point of being a business, is to get to work and do the jobs and make money.
Yeah. So did you always know that you wanted to be an owner of your own company? Or is that kind of the objective for most guys that start into the electrician business?
I would say, I don't know if it's the objective or not, because a lot of people are happy, like I said, just going to work, doing their job, and going home. They don't have the desire to be, own their own business, because they just think that there's tons of headaches, which they're right. There's pros and cons of being in business. I mean, if you're one of the kind of person that wants to go and do your 40-hour a week or work your 8 hours a day, then you better work for somebody else, because when you go to work for yourself, those kind of things are just out the door. I mean, you're putting in 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, because you're working 5 or 6 of those, and then the other 6 or 7 of them, you're doing paperwork or trying to do estimates or trying to get more work, because you got to look and plan ahead. You're just like, can't plan ahead till tomorrow. Well, today's Saturday. Okay, what are we going to do Monday? Well, I don't know. We'll just wait and see if somebody calls. No, you can't do that.
Yeah, what's our 6-month plan? What's our year plan? Exactly.
I mean, you can't. I don't know if I can go 6 months out, but I can usually plan about a month out of the kind of work that we've got coming up, and then whatever fills in between. I mean, because I'm to the point now with my business where it's very rare that I don't get, at least 10 calls a week of something. I mean, it's usually 1 or 2 calls every day of something silly, or somebody's referred me, or even just asking a question or something like that. And then, the next week maybe they'll call and they'll move ahead with something. But I do a ton of estimates. I mean, it seems like I'm always going out, and, I on my website, I advertise that I do free estimates in town, which I still do. And I don't know if any of the other contractors do or not, but I do. And I'll come into town, I'll walk over there and I'll walk you through it and tell you what I recommend. And then as long as I follow up with that estimate, 95% of the time, if I follow up and give them a good price, they'll go with it. I mean, they'll tell me stories all the time. They're like, yeah, I had so-and-so electrical contractors out here last week, and they looked at it and they still haven't got back to me. Well, even if I was higher than them, the other electrical contractor and me, it was $100 more, I got back to them in a timely manner. are going to go with me.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. You
but,
showed that
but
professionalism.
back to your point.
Yeah, you showed
Exactly.
that. You showed that professionalism. You showed that drive. You showed that interest. Of course, I'm going to go with you.
Yeah, exactly. And if you have those traits, then you'll have a successful business, in my opinion. That's the kind of traits that you need to be in business for yourself. Because if you're out to go out there and make a killing, and you're going to make, I'm going to make 500 this year, and I'm going to be able to buy my property in Mexico and my boat out in San Diego and everything else. Yeah. Good luck. So, because that doesn't happen that way. So, yeah, I think if you're not concerned about the money part of it as much, and if you're just concerned about getting the work, and then, hey, look, I'm actually making money, and then you're happy doing the work, that's, if you can put all those together, then you'll be in my opinion, you'll have a good business. I mean,
yeah.
That's my thoughts.
So you said you're doing a lot of estimates. You're planning. What's kind of the typical day for you? I mean, what time are you waking up in the morning? What are you doing in the morning? Yeah, all that stuff.
Well, right now, a lot of my time is taken up with the contract I have up on Fort Huachuca. I fell into that as a word of mouth thing as well, because I never crossed my mind to even bid any kind of jobs up on post, because I thought, no, those are for big contractors. Those are for contractors that, out of Phoenix or out of New York or Chicago or something like that. Never even crossed my mind to even bid anything like that. So I bid a contract up there because somebody asked me to. One of the other smaller contractors said, hey, we've got a requirement to have an electrician on a secure compound that needs to be a full-time electrician. Would you be willing to do that with your company? And I'm like, oh yeah, sure. If it's guaranteed work.
Yeah.
So I did. Who wouldn't, So
absolutely.
Anyway, I went to work for that contractor, and I worked for them for about 2 years, and I did that. But in that 2 years, I learned how to bid those jobs, and I didn't know how to do it and how to word them properly and everything else like that, because I had to go through and review some of that stuff and submit billing and stuff like that to this contractor. And I thought, you know what? If I can cut out that contractor and just do this myself, then I would be further ahead. So whenever they decided, the government says, we're out of money and we don't have the money to be able to pay this anymore, so we're going to cancel this contract. So they canceled the contract. So then I was basically, I guess per se, the contract ended. And then I went back out here into the real world and did my own thing. And I thought, you know what? Well, I guess if they really want something, they'll call me back. Well, they did. They realized after a year that, hey, Jonah and Barataria Electric really did a good job for us, and we really want them. So they called me directly and said, hey, can you give us a price without including this other contractor, because, it was just too costly to have them in there. And after I'd already worked for them for 2 years, I knew the proper thing to do, and I went ahead and put in for it, and hey, they gave it to me. So my typical day, I usually get up about 5 in the morning, and I head up there, and I'm up there by 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, and I do electrical work on a compound up there for 8 hours a day. It's almost like having a job, because I actually do have a desk, and I do have a computer and everything like that, and I do electrical work on this compound. I mainly propose a lot of stuff, because they're always asking for proposals on this stuff to be able to do it, because I have to propose it first, same way as an estimate, and then the government has to say yay or nay, whether they've got the money or the funding for these projects. And I spend 8 hours a day doing that. And then, sometimes there's work to be done there too. They get a new piece of equipment in that needs to be wired up, or whatever needs to happen with that. Hey, we got a light out in the ladies' bathroom. Okay, well, call the electrician. So I'm right there on it. But it's just for this compound, though. It's just for this compound, because the post actually has a company that maintains all the buildings around there. But it's just, I contract solely to this one compound. It's sort of a real tight niched sort of thing. So it works out. Mm-hmm. But after that 8 hours, I still got to run Barataria Electric. So after I, basically leave that compound, I go out to my truck and change shirts and put on my Barataria Electric shirt, and I go to my service calls. And last week, we worked. I've had to shuffle my guys around too, because they can be out there sometimes when I'm there, but obviously the owners of a lot of other businesses want to see me there. They pay for me to be there, not for my guys.
Oh.
So they want me because they hire me. They're like, hey, we know Jonah can handle this. We don't know who James is or who Bob is or whatever it is.
Yeah.
We don't know who they are, but we know Jonah will do it right and do it right the first time. So then I leave that compound, and last week we wired a paint booth out in Huachuca City for a powder coating company. And we went out there and ran the conduit and put all this stuff together. And I got to explain to these people, I'm like, hey, I've got this contractor in Fort Huachuca. I will still wire your paint booths because I don't want to lose out on your business, and I want to give you a good job, but you have to be flexible to my times. So I can be out there from 4:30 till about 8:30 at night and put in a good 4 hours, and I can have it done in 2 days for you rather than all in 1 day. Would that be okay? And as long as they're okay with that, most of the time they are. There's certain instances that are like, hey, we need you like right now. And I'm like, hey, I can't be there right this second, but I will be there right after I leave Fort Huachuca, because I don't want to burn my bridge with my company either. I don't want to burn my customers and everything else. I want to be able to do that. And hey, another thought that nobody really thinks about with that kind of work, doing that, a lot of people are home. A lot of people get off work at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So I'm able to cover that call because most electricians are like, oh, I can be out there at 8 or 9 in the morning. And they'll be like, well, I got to go to work. Well, I guess I got to take off work to be able to be out there for you. And they're like, and then the guy doesn't show up till 9:30 or 10, sort of like the cable guy. And then the guy's like, well, no, sorry, I can't fix it for you, but we'll be back tomorrow. And he's like, look, I've already taken off the morning to be over here with you. Why can't you get it fixed? So
and that goes
that's the
back
advantage I have is.
Yeah, that goes back to the customer service, though. Being that good customer service, right? And having that, totally.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So I can go in there and I can be there in the evenings when people are home, and I can knock out jobs, small things. That's why I said that we mainly do service calls. I go. It's easy enough for me to hang 2 ceiling fans in 4 hours or less, and I could be there when the people are there. Maybe sort of in their dinner time, but they're willing to sacrifice me being through dinner to not have to miss work to be able to afford to pay me.
Yes.
I guess. So.
That's just. But like I said, that's just being professional, right?
Exactly.
If you're going to be late, you're going to call them, right?
Exactly.
It's not like where's this guy? I've been sitting around for an hour, and getting frustrated.
Okay.
I'm not referring a person that does that at all, but that's totally true.
Exactly.
That's totally true.
Exactly. It's not like the cable company. The running joke with the cable company was, hey, we can be out there between Monday 8 a.m. and Friday at noon. Is that okay?
Well, that's totally true.
Just hang around and wait for us.
It's like dark humor right there. That's
yeah, I know.
we've all been screwed like that. So let's talk money here a little bit. So what kind of realistic salary would somebody starting out as an electrician expect to make? And I'm sure it's different, union, non-union locations in the country, but kind of what would you kind of expect to see initially?
Well, don't expect to get rich right off the bat. That's what I'll say. If you're going to try to make a go at it in an electrical field, there's a lot of tools you're going to require. So you got to find that fine line between what you're going to pay yourself and then what you're going to use to purchase equipment, what you're going to use to maintain your equipment. And then also, if you're going to have employees, they don't understand IOUs. I've tried it several times. I try to give them IOUs. They don't like it. Be like, hey, can I pay you next week? Yeah, I know you put in 40 hours this week, but next week? No, that doesn't happen. So you as an owner of me as an owner of Barataria Electric, I'm the last person to get paid. So if you're going into it to make a killing and you're going to retire, at 35 years old, you're in the wrong business. We need to find something else. I wish I could have found that business. I would have been retired 35, but no, I'm always constantly turning the money. So even when I pay myself, from Barataria Electric, a lot of times I use that money to invest back into Barataria Electric, and not even knowing, I'll be like, I can buy this backhoe and I can use it around the house. Well, then I buy it with my money that I've paid myself from Barataria Electric. And then I'm like, oh, well, now I got the backhoe. Now I can use it with Barry Electric. So yeah, I'm always buying things. I mean, I've got tons of stuff. I mean, there's nothing on here that says my age, but I'm 38 years old, and I've got a ton of equipment. I mean, I had a guy come out here yesterday. He's like, man, how in the world did you wind up with all this stuff? Did somebody give it to you? No, they didn't. I bought every piece of equipment that's sitting out here. I bought that backhoe, and, I made, payments on it, or I paid for it. I bought that utility truck, and I've got 3 other utility trucks, and got 2 bucket trucks. And I've also just this last year bought a mini excavator because, that's some of you're talking about the versatility of your market or whatever like that. In Sierra Vista, our rental company went out of business. We no longer have I believe it was RSC or I can't think of it. It was United Rentals, maybe is what it was. Anyway, a lot of people would go down there and rent equipment to be able to do this stuff, thinking they were going to save money. It'd be like, hey, we need an electrician to wire our shed or something out here, so I'll go down to RSC and rent a trencher, and that'll save me, like $300 because then I can just, pay them to run the electric. Well, now you can't rent that stuff, so you'd have to go to Tucson or Phoenix to rent it. Well, I saw the need for that market because a lot of people were calling me to wire things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to buy the equipment. I know how to use it, and I can use it for other things as well, other sides of the market other than electrical. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and buy that. So I took the jump this last year and, bought a $30,000 excavator, and we'll just put it to work. The main thing is finding the work for it. But my opinion is if you have something like that, the work will find you. And it has, and it really has. I mean, when people start knowing you have that thing, they're like, oh yeah, Barry Electric's got that excavator. Oh yeah, at least they don't have to go out and rent anything, so they can give us a good deal on, putting this in there, which I can. I can because I own that piece of equipment. And yes, I am going to charge for it, but I'm not going to try to make my $30,000 back on one job. I'll divide it over 300 or 3,000 jobs to be able to pay it back.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But that's
back to your point of, go ahead.
No, go for it.
I was just saying, back to your point of getting paid yourself, I've not made a killing off it by any means. I mean, I'm always constantly rolling the money some which way, or I'm a Craigslistaholic. I mean, I shop Craigslist religiously. I mean, I'm always on there every day looking to see what's out there, just to see, look, a green lean knockout set. Oh, it's only $400, man. That thing is like $1,500. I'm going to buy it. So I'm constantly buying stuff for the business. So
yeah. And that's how you expand, right? You identify some market trends, and you're able to be in a position to be able to capitalize on that.
Exactly.
Nice.
I'll walk inside and get out of the wind here. I'm sorry.
No worries. Well, that's good.
Okay.
That's awesome. And I guess one final question here. And we've really touched on this prior, but what would be your advice to anybody out there that's thinking about doing this? What final advice would you have for somebody?
My final advice is just look at the town you're in and see if there's a need for it. I mean, if you think there's a need, if you feel that you can provide a good service and you feel that you can, do better than those other electrical contractors or plumbing contractors or roofing contractors or whatever else, if you think you can do that, and if money is not the main object, obviously, like I was just touching on, then go for it. I mean, there's nothing like a feeling of being in business for yourself. I mean, I really enjoy it. I really enjoy I'm the kind of person that hates being told what to do by other people. I'm a natural leader by birth. I like to lead. I don't want to follow. I want to go through, and I want to be in control of the job. I want to make those decisions, whether they're goofy or not, whether someone says, oh, well, it's a goofy decision. Well, hey, it was my decision, and that's what
and
it's
at least
be.
you made one. Most people won't even make decisions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think years ago, I did a job, and I talked to a guy that owned a block company here in town, and I think his words have stuck with me for all these years. And he said, the reason I became the boss is because even when I'm wrong, I'm right. And I thought, you know what? That makes a lot of sense, because even though it's really rude to say to somebody, but hey, the reason I'm in business is because even if I make these wrong decisions, I'm still right because I'm still making these decisions for the company and everything like that. And I don't have to explain it to somebody else, and if, hey, it didn't work out. Yeah, well, I learned from that. I guess we won't do that anymore. But I thought, that's sort of a weird way to look at it, and I'm sure his employees didn't like that, but, I've not treated my guys that way by any means, but at the same time, it's sort of the running joke is just like, yeah, even when I'm wrong, I'm right, and just, but if you're going to be in business, like I said, don't expect to make a killing overnight, spread it out over time and then just take your time with it. And, don't rely upon people calling you because it won't happen right off the bat. People will not be, burning up your phone. They won't be sending emails, and you're going to have to chase the work, and you're going to have to do everything that's involved with it. And I can tell you that a lot of my time is spent doing paperwork, and I do not like paperwork. So eventually I'll get to the point in my business where I can hire somebody to do a lot of my stuff, to do my estimates and everything. But then again, would I be competitive like I am now? I don't know. I'd like to think so. But, that's what sets me apart from everybody else is I can do all that work and I can estimate it and I can still provide a fair price. And that's why we're getting the work.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So
that's my advice.
Even listing off, you're working long hours and sometimes it's stressful and you're having to work with money and the paperwork. There's still that reward there in being that owner and being your own boss, and that far outweighs working for somebody else. Nice.
Oh, it's it's more rewarding. It just feels more rewarding. It really does. And I really like seeing. I'm standing here, walked in the house here. I wear hats all the time. I got my hat and I've got my company logo on it. I really enjoy seeing my hat and my company logo, and I'm thinking, that's my company. And it has a good name behind it, and it has a good person behind it. So, and that's as long as you feel good about those things, you'll be a successful business, I think. So, in my opinion.
Nice. Well, Jonah, thanks for taking the time to come and talk about your company and about becoming an electrician. How can people?
No problem.
Yeah. How can people get a hold of you here if they need work or if they have any other questions?
You can either go to my website, which is www.barateriaelectric.com, which is, it's all one word. Or you can call me, you can do a Google search. Google will come up with me too, but you can call me at my business line. It's 520-249-7373. And I'll be happy to do any work that anybody may have. Yeah, I'd be happy to provide you free estimates and at least come out and take a look at what you got. So any work you got, we'll take it. So we'll see.
Nice.
We don't clean windows, is what I tell everybody. We don't clean windows, but we'll do electrical work.
Well, again, Jonah, thanks again very, very much for just coming on, providing advice, providing your own, what the actual reality is for being an electrician starting out and actually running a business. So, providing
no problem.
all that
Thank you for having me.
Invaluable. So, thanks again.
Yep. Thank you.
Hi. Do I?
No, thanks again, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode. Hopefully it's chock full information that you guys can actually take, not only listen to, but utilize, right? So it's not just about listening to the stuff, it's about actually taking action. So consider it, do more research. Hopefully this was a good start. What do we want people to do?
We want them to like and subscribe.
Yep, so click below, subscribe, tell your friends, talk to your friends. And if you guys have any questions, if you guys have any ways that we can improve the show, let us know. Bye.